Hey there, this is Vince, and I've spent my entire life in the Midwest. Like here, and here, and even here. I moved away from my hometown for grad school, and when I finally graduated with a PhD in finance, I had quite a few opportunities, so I ended up moving here. That's right, I moved to the Netherlands, and being in a new country, I wanted to fully immerse myself in Dutch society, starting with learning the language. I was already taking Dutch courses and using Duolingo, but I wanted something else not only to supplement my learning, but to also put it to the test. To accomplish this, I decided to learn Dutch through something I'm already quite familiar with: video games. Now here's the situation. I search for games with Dutch translation on Steam and play them entirely in Dutch. So no English translations, no looking anything up, so I can immerse myself as much as possible. In this series, I'll take you through my journey of learning Dutch through video games, where I'll be sharing my experiences with each game and highlighting aspects of each game that might be relevant when setting expectations. Perhaps I'll sprinkle in some Dutch mini lessons while I'm at it.
Dutch isn't the easiest to learn. Usually German takes precedence over Dutch in pretty much every place you go. Some people don't even know what the Netherlands even is.
The Netherlands is this make-believe place where Peter Pan and Tinkerbell come from.
Probably most significantly because it's just not necessary. Not only is it necessary outside of the country, obviously, but it's not even necessary in the country, where such a large proportion of people already speak English. I found the demo for a game called Heavy Rain, which not only just supports text, but also has voiceover or dubbing in Dutch. And that's what makes this so important. You see, Heavy Rain is a game from Quantic Dream, and essentially it's part of what is called interactive fiction, where it's kind of like a movie where you get to make some decisions and change the endings. When I first started playing the game, I got pretty excited, but then very quickly I started to get a little anxious. It was very easy to tell I was making a lot of mistakes just reading it straight out the get-go.
Yeah, this is fine. You will also... The hero of the monitor must apply if you can't see. I think this is contrast. So possibility. I play free guidelines video games, so I'm guessing free roam.
And there were some cases also which you'll feel like you're a little slow and you have to keep up.
I want to go back to the car. I think now that I'm like playing it in Dutch, like even though the gameplay is largely the same, like I'm kind of afraid of like playing the game, so I just want to walk back to the car and like not play. Press on control for a different camera so that I can't.
It wasn't long before I got a little bit of confidence. I mean, there were some cases where I could throw in my own words.
Yeah, take the money, you dirty Doclos.
In other cases where I actually understood what was going on. And this is what brings us into the first scene of the game. And so essentially you are a private detective and you walk into a hotel. There's finally a conversation that really got me to have confidence.
Who's Lauren Winter?
Lauren Winter.
Have you heard of him? No, not really, no. I should probably actually listen.
Oh, die Lauren Winter. Derde verdieping, laatste deur links aan het einde van de gang.
Okay, so it's third floor, last door on the left at the end of the hall. So here's the thing: is this takes place in the United States, but they're speaking in Dutch. So when they say third floor, is that American third floor or is that European third floor? All right, so it's the last door on the left. We're professionals and we know the Dutch language, so we're going to not look in the other rooms. She is in this room.
Sorry, klanten alleen op afspraak.
Nope.
After that first conversation, of course, I felt all good. And then what happened next, I think I got the most invested in doing this, was not about learning the Dutch language, but how cheap I thought a particular hooker was.
Kost $50.
Only 50? So here's the deal. Hookers in America are so much more expensive because there's so much more risk. In the Netherlands, it's €200 an hour. But then again, this is 2009. So $50 is a really good deal. Maybe if he didn't give money to that homeless guy, he'd have money for the hooker. No, can I look at your fridge? If this is her place, 50 an hour is not doing... Oh, no, this is America, where, like, living is super cheap.
I seem to be convinced that it was $50 an hour, although after reviewing the footage, it was actually said in plain language multiple times, it was only for 10 minutes.
Leg het geld maar op tafel. Je hebt precies 10 minuten. Als de wekker gaat, is het voorbij, oké?
With the money I did not give...
But, and so in these conversations, the first word that came up was VIP.
Shit, een agent. Ik had het kunnen weten. Wat wil je? Een gratis wip, is dat het?
Again, this is one of those words that you're not going to hear about in your Dutch class most likely. But it was a word nonetheless that I could engage my Dutch friends in and to understand what it meant. At some point during the conversation, I actually got the chance to make a decision.
So, okay. So there's begrijpvol.
Begripvol.
So there's understand. There's overtuigen, which is like... And then there's volharden. So I think volharden might be aggressive. The
Begrip.
is something... Let's be bad cop because I'm in Dutch and Dutch are bad cop. No, Dutch are like really effective cops. Let's just play the game.
Er zullen meer doden vallen als we hem niet tegenhouden. Je moet me helpen, Lauren. Misschien weet je iets dat belangrijk is voor het onderzoek.
Helpen. Er is niets
Nothing
dat je
you
kunt
can
doen.
do.
Mijn zoon is dood, hoor je me? Hij is dood.
As a result of one of my decisions, I eventually encountered another term that is also rude and you would not encounter in class.
I will buy information with the money I did not give.
Of niet? Alles wat ik vraag is dat je in die tijd wat vragen beantwoordt.
Je geeft me geld om over mijn zoon te vertellen, is dat het? Je kunt mijn lichaam kopen, Shelby, maar mijn zoon is niet te koop. Rot op!
Interesting.
Rot een eind op!
After that conversation, essentially the hooker kicks this investigator out. And eventually, while he's having an asthma attack, there's this tough guy that walks in. And so I haven't heard the English version of this scene, but the Dutch version I thought was pretty funny. I would say hearing someone be a tough guy in Dutch is just the silliest thing in my mind. It was hard to take it seriously, but it was still a nice time.
He just looks like defeated.
Wat moet je van me, eikel?
Lauren, is alles oké?
Alles is kis. En hou op, die loser. Jij weer? Als je heibel wil, zit je bij mij goed. Ik ram je helemaal in elkaar.
Oh,
Fuck.
Troy, nee!
I can't pay attention to the dialogue. I'm trying to fight this guy. Come on.
Troy, stop!
Come on. Do something.
Politie!
Like,
Troy, nee!
oh, that's scary. What the fuck?
Stop!
Ah,
Hou nou in godsnaam op!
ik zei toch dat je moest opdonderen, eikel.
Get up, bitch.
Jou zie ik nog wel. Bitch.
Now, after that whole fight scene, there was one sentence that I really appreciated that I want to take the time to kind of break down a little bit.
At least no one got killed.
Is alles oké?
om eerlijk te zijn, ik heb me wel eens beter gevoeld.
Essentially, there are three things about the following sentence. Om eerlijk te zijn, ik heb me wel eens beter gevoeld. So the first thing is just the statement om eerlijk te zijn. So at the time I was recording this, I had just gone over in my Dutch course the om te phenomenon. And so I just thought it was cool to actually just see an application of that concept. But also with this saying, I think this is also just like a saying that is very common, especially in English as well. And so I think it's just a nice one to have in my back pocket. I think when I saw this, I immediately kind of internalized it, and now I throw it around all the time. The second thing has to do with ik heb me wel beter gevoeld. The thing here is the verb voelen, to feel. So one issue or one question I always had, because there's voelen as in like I'm feeling something, and then there's voelen as in like I feel sad or I feel happy.
And so also around this time, a little bit after recording this, I did ask a few Dutch people. And so the difference here is that if you are saying this stone feels smooth, I don't know how to say smooth, but that's how you would say like deze steen of voelt smooth. However, if you are talking about your like an intangible like concept, like feeling, like I feel sad, it would be, instead of it being voelen, it would be zich voelen. And so this is why we actually see ik heb me wels beter gevoeld instead of just ik heb wels beter gevoeld. And the third bit I was referring to, it's just essentially just another example of the use of a reflexive verb, where I also was once confused of where does the pronoun come in a reflexive verb. And here it's always going to be after the subject and then the verb, the initial verb. So even though the voelen part is over here, the verb that starts it, the heb, since we have the heb and the ik together, then me will come immediately after. So I think this sentence is just good for an overall example of a couple of these like B1 level concepts, as well as clarifying voelen versus zich voelen. So this is essentially a former client who she said she can't see anymore, and I didn't really understand what happened after that.
Meneer Shelby,
Mr. Shelby.
Ja,
bedankt.
I mean, I would be upset if she was only 50 an hour and she couldn't see me anymore. I'd be beating up cops too. So like, come on.
And so after this scene, which again I think was the most interesting part of the entire demo, we then get to what I saw as the most boring part of the entire demo, which was this like investigation part. Of course, there are a few opportunities, like, okay, you can see someone talking on the news, like you can have this conversation with like other police, but essentially you're following this guy named Agent Norman Jayden, FBI, which I also think is hilarious because when he says that in Dutch, if you have an FBI agent actually introducing themselves in Dutch, I think it's just a funny concept to me.
Agent Norman Jayden, FBI.
But there's also one thing I noticed. Now I want you to try to see if you can figure it out.
Ik ben op zoek naar inspecteur Blake. Is hij hier?
Ik zag hem net binnenkomen. Hij moet hier zijn.
Bedankt.
And so the issue here is that he actually pronounces hij as he.
Is hij hier?
And so I had a few ideas of why this would be. The first one just being that maybe there's a certain accent somewhere in the Netherlands that pronounces it this way, but of course my Dutch contact claims that there is no well-known, at least, accent that would pronounce hi as he. So then I thought maybe this guy's just a weirdo, which later on, he is kind of socially awkward. But at the same time, even listening to the English translation, he doesn't make that mistake. He pronounces it completely clearly and completely normally.
I'm looking for Lieutenant Blake. Is he around?
So I am at this point kind of assuming that it was just a dubbing error.
All right, last minute editing, Vince coming in hot. So upon actual Dutch people actually watching the video, so the is he here phenomenon is actually not a dubbing error. At the very worst, it is a misleading subtitle. Is he here is actually kind of a shorthand version or a shorthand way of saying is he or is hi here. It's mainly just informal, just convenience communication. It is not a dubbing error.
Now, there was at some point a couple sentences that I also appreciated. This following sentence, after trying to investigate something that he found on the ground,
Houdt geen verband met het onderzoek.
he is essentially saying that this particular thing is not related to the investigation. And so there are three words that I want to point out in this sentence. The first one being onderzoek. Now, the benefit of playing video games or watching TV shows as well is that there's always a specific theme, and so words that you may or may not encounter, you may encounter multiple times in multiple settings. Because this is a game about investigating a murder, we are seeing the word onderzoek in multiple settings.
My name is Scott Shelby. I am a private detective.
De ouders van de slachtoffers van de origami killer hebben me gevraagd de moorden te onderzoeken. Ik wil je alleen maar wat vragen stellen over Johnny.
And so it is onderzoek, investigation, and the verb onderzoeken, to investigate or to research. And also, the fact that instead of saying het onderzoek, it is like met het Onderzoek. Like in the subtitles, it's apostrophe. And this is also a case of, this is where like a real world application where sometimes it might be pointed out in some Dutch courses, or for example in Duolingo, it is not. But in reality, it seems that they don't actually say the whole word or they condense it. Kind of like when in English you say you know instead of you know. And there was also another case where it's always nice when you start to see characters. Because when you see characters, you also get this opportunity to experience Dutch other than from a very boring, vanilla lens of just a standard person introducing themselves or saying that they're from Korea, I guess. And so there's another word you won't learn in your Dutch course, and that is eikel, which essentially, to my knowledge, just means jerk.
Inspecteur Blake, ik ben agent Norman Jaden van de FBI. Ik ben vanmorgen op uw kantoor geweest. Ze zeiden dat u hier was.
Nou, als je op zoek bent naar regen, lijken en snelwegen, dan ben je aan het goede adres. Maar kun je die eigenlijk met die bulldozer 5 minuten laten ophouden? Ik kan mezelf niet horen denken hier. Ben al weg, inspecteur. Wat moet je van me, eikel?
Now, towards the end, I was just trying to look for things to get out of this level, but there was one more conversation that just happened to come by that also kind of showed a bit of a character trait of just being awkward. We have this...
Agent Norman Jaden, FBI. Is he here?
Just having this awkward conversation with these other cops. And at some point, they're kind of just like, who even are you?
How's the weather?
Wat een rot weer, hè? Regent het altijd zoveel?
Ja, altijd in de herfst.
Always
Is dat
in
waar u
Nederland.
vandaan komt niet zo?
Oh ja. Ja, tuurlijk.
Tuurlijk. Fucking love it.
Best fris hier, hè?
Cola.
Is dat koffie wat u daar drinkt?
Het is koffie in de thermos achter me. Ga uw gang.
Wanneer is het lichaam gevonden?
Sorry hoor, maar wie bent u eigenlijk?
Norman Jaden, FBI.
Is hij hier? Als u vragen wilt stellen, dan moet u bij inspecteur Blake zijn, meneer.
But, you know, that conversation was over and so was my patience. And so at some point I finally found this Agent Blake guy again, and I wanted this level to be over so badly that when I finally saw that he was asking, hey, I'm going back to the office, are you staying? I was immediately like,
Hell no.
but then finally got in my car, and that was essentially the Heavy Rain demo. So after that last scene, I was honestly super skeptical because I'm like, okay, like I'm kind of getting the Dutch along, but also I don't want to have to play this walking simulator for forever. And I really just didn't feel like I wanted to invest in the full game. But then a few days later, it went on sale on Steam for €5, and I immediately capitalized on that.